Hello, my name is Zach McNaught, and this is my Global Society final project, which I did on homelessness. I chose this topic because it is a topic that is very pressing and hits close to home for everybody. I know in any major city, value, big or small, there is a problem with homelessness. There might even be some homeless people in your own town. Now, the reason I chose this is because I think it's a pressing problem. I think it needs way more attention than the war in the Middle East does, and I feel like we should not, as a society, leave anybody on the grounds outside living in the cold, whether they did it themselves or not. According to a couple stats, there are about 12% in certain states of people who live in that state as homeless. Now, also, the reason I chose this is because there's a huge problem in global society at our global world, as you want to call it, with people with well developed countries who aren't even fixing their problem, including France, Spain, England, Ireland, China, Russia, India, America, Canada. There are so many homeless people in these countries, but nobody's paying attention to them, and it's really sickening, and it's kind of sad that we are letting people just die and we walk by. Now, I choose to look at this from a disciplinary action of economics, about how much money it would actually cost to house homeless people, whether they have drug problems or not. And I also looked at how religion affects this, and I also looked at this from a business perspective about how in major cities such as London and LA, people living on the streets right in front of their stores or in the alleys behind, how it affects business for these business owners. Now, I feel like for an individual role, I volunteer at soup kitchens and I volunteer to help, and I always just give a few dollars to these people that are living on the streets. It says in this stat uh, for the University of Central Florida Undergrad Research Journal that less than 4% of people help out and give money to homeless people in the sample of 100 people that they did where they ran a project. Now, I feel like a lot of people need their individual roles to be more educated and also need to stop being so prejudiced towards the people that are homeless. Not all of them have drug problems and not all of them are drunks. A lot of people on the streets are actually veterans. According to the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans, at least 50,000 veterans are on the streets every night, and that's actually terrible. All these people gave everything for us and went to war for us, but we can't give anything back for them, and they're living on the streets, homeless. That's just something to think about, and I think an individual's role is also to just give money when you can. A lot of people don't like to. I always do, and I mean, what's the problem with helping out somebody? And by doing this, you're helping out in the global issue because if you say if you talk to your friends about it and then they talk to their friends about it, word of mouth is very key. It's very strong. It's a very powerful movement. The more people and the more information that we can get out about this project and how many people are actually physically living on the streets, the better the situation off is going to be and how we can help. Now, for a national role, I think that as a nation, we need to stop focusing on the Middle East and need to start focusing more on ourselves. Detroit looks like an actual war zone. There are tons of people on the street. We need to stop spending so much money on the war. For example, it costs less than $3,000 to house a per person per month in one of these shelters, but yet we can buy a brand new fleet of tanks at $12.7 million a tank. Now, I just want to let you sink that in. So, if they order 10 tanks, that's $127 million. But we can't house enough people in our country because we don't have enough money for the shelters, even though it's less than $3,000 a month, according to the National Movement to End Homelessness. It's less than $3,000 a month in the cities of LA and New York to house people. but yet we bought 127 million dollars worth of tanks for a war that we're not even supposed to be in. Now, I think as a global issue that we should all band together and come together and declare a global community and help other countries get people off the streets. But first, before we do that, I think we all need to focus on our backyards and fix what we have in our backyards. I think America needs to take a big, hard, long look at the homeless people in LA and the homeless people in New York, just to name some big cities, and obviously fix Detroit. We keep going to war and we keep looking out at other countries when it's really not our problem, but we can't even fix Detroit, and that's really sad, and it's really disgusting how we don't pay attention to them. Political and policy implications is a big thing because political movements have nothing to do with the people on the streets. It's always, oh, well, I'm running for president and I'm going to change this and this and this. I want a president that's going to say they're going to change how we look at homeless people and all the prejudice that comes with homeless people and how we're letting 50,000 veterans a night sleep on the ground. And I think that needs to be fixed. And I think policy-wise that we need to focus on our backyards again. I mean, there's not much else we can do. The benefits of a global community would be hugely imperative to how we can share resources, ideas, cultures, build eco-friendly society buildings, which is a topic that has been talked about in this journal as well, about how if all the soldiers in the world put down their guns, picked up shovels, that we could build eco-friendly, zero sustain or heavy sustain greenhouses for all the people of the world, and nobody would be left on the streets. That would be great. But the problem is we're also worried about oil and the war, and there's huge resource barriers and education barriers and disease barriers that a lot of people overlook when they think about how easy it would be to make a global community. And I think that's part of the challenges of a global community is that not everybody's going to get along all the time, and even if we have rules in place, stuff's going to get out of hand, and humans are just prone to war. I mean, we've had so many wars in the history of the human race it's not even funny, and we've barely been here on the planet of the Earth for expect of time, and relatively to how old the universe is. Now, so I think a global society would be very good for us, but it could also be very bad because not a lot of people have the resources that America has or has the technology that America has, and if we do, it's going to take a long time and a lot of money to make everybody come together because everybody's going to want to do it their own way. The evolution of technology has been used to address the problem of homelessness, but it just spreads information about homeless people, like, oh, look at this poor guy on the street, or that, or this, and that's cool and all, and that's what people do. They share, they like, they Twitter, but I think the real problem is that technology is a negative thing because people may be getting this information, which is a positive thing, but they almost just glance over it, and it's not like a real issue. There's so many news stories out there with technology now that everything that's on the news story isn't really that critical, and you don't look at it like it's critical, but all the information about like homeless people and people who have drug problems, like that's some serious stuff, and I think technology has desensitized us to news because we can get access to news 24/7. Now, technology is also very positive because it spreads information, like this website says the National Attendance Alliance to End Homelessness. I never would have found this site if it wasn't for technology, but I mean, I also think the negatives outweigh the positive because there's just so much desensitized information through technology that people aren't really grasping that there are huge issues out there that he can fix and be a part of and we come together. Now, from my religion perspective and my business perspective, I looked at not only an understood, I looked at two understudied graduate researches about how religion and stuff, and it's a pretty good read. It it has a lot of stats about how people won't donate to other homeless people outside of their religious group or help them if they're atheists. It's something like 60% of religious people will not donate to an atheist or somebody outside of their religion, which is just terrible. And if anything taught us about discrimination from the Bible, they used to lynch and throw rocks at the homeless people of their time. So I mean that was terrible. So I think religion is a huge problem with creating a prejudice that everybody who's homeless is bad because I mean just because they don't share the same religious views and you don't help them, you're not helping the cause. You're part of the cause, and I think that's a huge issue in our society that needs to end. And how it affects businesses is city managers and stuff have to take better precaution because something like there's a 4% business decrease if a homeless person is living in front of or next to a business, that people will not go there because they think they're associated with that business, and it's pretty sad. So, like in London, they have put strips in front of the stores, metal spikes, and they've made benches that are curved and have bumps on them, so they can't sleep on them. And it's really sad that our society has come to this point where we have to put spikes in the ground so people don't sleep in front of businesses, even though they have nowhere to go. And it's less than $3,000 a month to house these people, but we can buy $12 million tanks. So that's just my point, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation. Thank you.